didn't wrote it down, I forget about our homework. And I know we were discussing at least 5 minutes because I couldn't find on the token engineering page the chapters, and then I forgot to write it down. So honestly, I'm a little bit lost. But maybe Wojtek, you can help us out.
I'm sorry, not. So I remember that we were supposed to finish some chapters, and I remember there was like 2 of them. It was not chapters; it was like areas of focus. But either way, I didn't manage to do that. So whatever you have prepared, I think that would work.
Okay, just say
This
you
is the
are
best study
like
group.
not good
This is the
students.
best study group. Sorry. This is the best study group ever. No one knows what to do. No one did something.
I think it's safe to say it's good I'm back. Okay.
I mean, at least it's harmless.
Yeah.
You
have to focus on the positive aspects. Stella, you're back.
If you guys are just by yourself, it's pure chaos. I'm sure you're having a lot of fun, but it's pure chaos. So, Hi Grayscale, good morning. Please tell me you know what you were supposed to do for today.
Well, I think we were just supposed to go over, I guess, section B and the.
Oh, you have completed everything in section A. So you did context and defining governance, key concepts, analysis, methodologies, use cases, and mapping.
Well, the thing is, I think we were supposed to go over the key concepts. I think Rohan said we should do, the 4 and 5. We should kind of go over 4 and 5. So.
Oh wow. Okay, so you made huge advances. So I'm a little bit more than half into context and defining governance. So I could talk with you about that. But I haven't touched key concepts or chapter 5. Have you, Grayscale?
I just breezed through chapter 5, but I went through the key concepts because basically what the key concepts is like everything we've read and up to this point, and then they boil it down to, I guess, the key concepts of what's probably going to be on the test or something like that. So that's why I got the.
I'm not sure if you saw, but I think Jessica actually did a very brilliant job in writing up these chapters because she's always marked everything in bold. That is like really important to remember. So that is really nice. So I did the same in my little Milanote file, right? Where it's like, maybe we can do it like this. We can just go through chapter 3 and 4, right? As like in a summary. So for example, maybe I can do chapter 3 and then Grayscale, you are up for chapter 4. Also, I have really great news. The webinar that I told you guys about, right? It's been coming to fruition, so it's going to happen. And we will start advertising, I think, next week. I sent them just all the materials, and I'm also going to post let me actually quickly do this. I'm going to post a YouTube link into our channel, so you guys you get a notification through the YouTube channel. But if you want to get a real invite, I suggest you sign up through the events page from Token Engineering, right? So, just saying. Testing.
But it's not open right now, right?
It should be. I'm checking in the YouTube link for you guys in a General Visual Learners group channel. So you can definitely get a reminder there. But I think Token Engineering Academy will really push this starting next week. This is when you can look at that. Okay, wait. So let me share my screen. It's actually it's
Yes. I'm really looking forward to this one. I just wanted to say that I'm really looking forward to this one. I think I cannot do much of a self promotion of myself, so that would be definitely be a value added for me.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I hope so. Not, I'm nervous too. I've been doing this for a while and I know how to do it, but I'm always nervous. So I will do my best and also rely on you guys for giving me good, like not good feedback, but like constructive feedback after, because then I can improve for the next time, right? Yeah.
I'm really looking forward. That's a great offer. So happy about that.
Yeah, me too. I'm in.
That's good. Good to hear from you guys. Thank you. Okay, so in chapter 3, so you can see, made my little. I know I'm a little bit of crazy. Anyhow, I thought this one was really important. So, what are some of the qualities or key ingredients of Web3 token-based systems, right? And this was a great summary. It was like multi-scale, emergent, complex, adaptive, socio-technical systems, evolving, dynamic, non-linear. The summary of all of this is you can set the conditions, but in the end, you never know how a complex system turns out, right? This is what I got from this, at least.
Yeah.
In simple words, right? This is like, it's a bunch of really nice words, but in simple terms, it means you have an idea, you put it out there, you see how it evolves, and then you start adapting and optimizing. Also thought it was really interesting because that has not been mentioned all the time before, but it's being mentioned a lot in chapter 3, is that in token engineering, we start in the design layer. So conceptual thinking is like the main first step you need to take, and it seems like the most daunting one, right? Because you have all of these different options. And this is when they essentially say, actually, this is not so, this is when they tell you like, hey, let's have a look at like all of these different definitions of governance, right? And funny enough, even before I knew this was a thing, I did this in the pre-reading materials. When I went through, the Wikipedia governance article, I was like, what are the types of governance that I want to look at closer for Alana? And I was like, this one is interesting. Oh, maybe there's something interesting in this one, right? And I took screenshots on my phone of all the different ones and put them in there. So I guess, whatever you're designing or you do want to design in the future, that's the approach. Let's see what's already there that speaks to certain aspects of a system that you want to design. Take that, analyze that, put it together, see which parts do work in your context and which parts don't, right? Then I thought it was interesting, again, the awareness, creating the awareness that we are building complex systems that have all of these 3 pillars, right? It's social, it's technical, and it has an economic layer to incentivize people. And, all of them equal as much as the next one. So value as much as the next one. Then there is another hint at it is a multidisciplinary approach, and looking at fields that you usually won't look at is probably beneficial in optimizing your system. That's what I got out of this part where the flower appeared again. These are the different definitions, and I guess also Jessica's favorite one was the one from Foucault. To govern is to structure the field of action that is possible for others. So meaning I described it as like chess playing, right? If you play chess, you usually have the chess pieces or figures, and then you have the chess player or chess master. But in our case, the chess pieces become like their own masters, essentially, right? And that's like a fundamental change in how all of this works. And lastly, I guess what I got out of this is, I summarized here. For these systems to turn out preferably, we need to think like nature and understand that we cannot control outcomes. So for me, as a little bit of a control freak, this is like a very soothing, conclusion. We can only set the initial conditions for certain qualities to emerge. And that is that is my summary of like the most important things I took out of like chapter 3.
Great. Thank you so much.
No problem. What do you guys think? You agree, or was something else that you liked, or did I miss something? Nothing? Okay, Grayscale, you're on. Grayscale? Lutra, you can hear me, right? It's not
Yes,
me.
I can hear you.
Okay. Grayscale, we need you.
Well, maybe I can move in because
Sure.
I finished at least the first 2 key concepts of chapter 4 about decentralization and progressive decentralization.
Okay.
And I found, this is a very, very well equipped summary of much of the pre-reading list.
True.
And a little bit like a Grayscale was already saying. And for me, the most impressive. Oh, hi there!
You're back. Okay. You want to take it on? Grayscale? He's fluking in and out of existence, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but please continue. Maybe you do the first 2, and then he can go over the others.
So, well, it's about the quintessence of decentralization is it's not a binary concept, and you have to think about different dimensions of decentralization and different stakeholders. So, different aspects of a DAO or a project have different levels of decentralization, and that might be quite fitting. So, you have to adapt the degree of decentralization to your goals of the project. I found this a very, very useful thing to know.
I'm sorry about that, guys. I had to go out and come back in because it froze.
Problem. We were like, oh, he's fluking in and out of existence. Let's just first do the first 2 because Lutra is already in the middle of it, and then you can go over the others. Is that okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay, cool. Yeah, but I also thought that, I remember when I started in Web3, everyone kept telling me like everything needs to be 100% decentralized. I was like, wait, how is that like even possible right now, right? Just from a technical point of view, because you still need to use, even for blockchains, as of my understanding, you still have to use TCP/IP protocols, right? Because otherwise you cannot get online, and they're usually not decentralized. So while I understand, this is a fundamental change in how we live and how we work in the future, I don't think we're even technically there to decentralize everything 100%. I don't think we can really do it. And so I also thought it was quite neat because I had a brief run through these, but not in detail. I need to go through it in detail. But I thought it was interesting that even they tell you need to see like what does your project need, and then you have to see if full decentralization, or like at least aiming towards that, is even a thing, right? Because maybe it's not. Like for the longest time, I remember before Immutable X and stuff came around, 100% gaming on blockchain was like, how would you even do that, right? I mean, these things have started to shift now, obviously, but yeah, I'm curious what you think, Grayscale.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree. The whole concept of being decentralized, from the beginning. I mean, from my understanding of the whole space was the ultimate goal. But as you can see and notice through like most projects, it's a very difficult thing to do, and like you said, it may not be necessary to be totally decentralized. It's like when I look at the like enterprise space, like Hyperledger or something with IBM or something like that. They were big to say that they wanted to share data, but it was more in a private sense. So all the companies still had their siloed type of information, but they just shared what they wanted on, like on the common, blockchain space. So it wasn't totally decentralized, but still it was able to, like everyone was able to kind of utilize, the data as they see fit. So I mean that's like in a nutshell, kind of how I see it. It's not gonna. A lot of projects are not gonna be totally decentralized. Yeah.
I mean, strictly, right? Even part of Ethereum, even though I think not the largest part, but it runs on AWS servers, right? There is a part that runs on that. So
Right.
yeah, I think it's relative. But I think what does matter is that you have a certain intention and you make that visible and communicate that. This is something I often miss in a lot of projects. For one of our development branches right now, we get a lot of partner requests. And, so I'm testing like essentially all of the different products and I'm like, I don't know, or, oh yeah, that's interesting. And, yesterday someone sent something to me and I was like, yeah, it works, but why would anyone want to use this? It's like the idea of a vision, mission, or a goal setting, right? Or like intention. It's not there, it's not communicated, and it's not visible, not through the product or anything else, right? And then I think no matter how well something works, if there is no, set goal or vision or mission, as we call it in marketing, right? It's really hard. It's really hard to say like, oh, this is a great thing, because yeah, probably not a lot of people will speak to it, and we need adaptation, right? We need adaptation. We cannot afford making these very Web 2 like mistakes, right? Using Web 3 technology, but we don't know how to communicate what we're actually what is our intention with this project? Where do we want to drive this? What is, the higher goal of this? So I think while, there's a lot of like advances on the technological side and on, the software layer and stuff like this, I think what's sometimes sadly missing is like very basic Web 2 ingredients of like, hey, what am I trying to do with this? Right now I got this to work, but what am I trying to accomplish with this? So knowing what you actually want to reach, and also for the key ingredients, because only once you know what you actually want to do, right, you can actually take these key ingredients and essentially do a bake-off with them, right? And be like, oh, I need like 5%, I need a pinch of, let's say, right, they had this like really great list. I need a, pinch of computer-aided governance, right? I need 20% of autonomy. I need 50% of decentralization or whatever, right? But only once you know what you're actually intending to do and who you're intending to do it with, this is when you can essentially allocate those ingredients as to its like importance for the project.
Yeah. I mean, it's you bring up so many points.
Yeah, indeed.
No, because even last week, I know I popped something in the chat last week. Something that I know on the Wojtek, probably was aware of it too. But this EXO, organization, which to your point, you have to have this idea, and they call it a like massive transmission, purpose. You have to have this purpose, and then getting that purpose is this whole canvas, which I like frameworks of really trying to develop your goal, and that goal is going to drive you to do through the whole process of of your project, and it kind of keeps you on track. So so you can experiment with almost anything, as long as you have this goal in mind. So I think, to your point, like a lot of companies now in this space, just want to take the technology and actually make it spin or do something, but they don't have a massive transformative purpose of that. And that also led me to something I was looking at. This go ahead, Mocha.
No, sir. Finish your thought. I have a slight delay in the talking, so go ahead.
Okay, and then also led me to what you were saying about these. Like there was this database that I got, like this value-driven database in Web3, projects this week, and it really lists, and I can put that in the chat too, about all the projects listed in type in this database, which you're going to be adding on to, like Ocean's in there, and of course like Uniswap, but it gives it's like finished projects, use cases. That's basically what it is, like use cases. Like we're always looking to see, like how this thing fits in. Is this project making sense? Been working on it for years, but now you have a database started where people can go and actually say like, oh, so this blockchain project is live, is working, and this is what its intent. So like the more and more we see those types of things as far as traction, it'll help. I think people get a better understanding on what direction to go and focus.
Yeah, I would add to this. I'm completely your opinion, 100%. It's all about the purpose, and the goal, the use case should really be the starting point. And if you got that, then you can, start thinking about the best implementation, like how much decentralization do I wish to have, and so on and so forth. But you need a use case, yeah? Why should someone use your product? And without that, all the technical things or the massive transmission, as you said, grayscale, yeah, will be somehow lost work.
Yeah. Let's hear Wojtek.
Yeah, hopefully you will be able to hear me. I think to the point that Stella made, I think it's really important to think about decentralization and what you want to achieve with that. And just recently, I've been at a talk when someone was describing what DAOs and in general like decentralized organizations are good for and what not. And I like one example, one area that they showed on what DAOs are not good for, and they specifically mentioned finding product market fit, because this is actually something where you need to have that kind of strong leader or more leaders who would be able to guide you through that process and go through all of those roadblocks that you will encounter. And like the decentralized organization is actually not good for it. On the other hand, like decentralized organization or a network state or something like that can be really good for governing common resource, yeah, more like club code or something like that. But not, I mean, it will not replace all of the stuff that we are currently seeing, for example, in Web2, because some of the functions of the current organization, of the current LLCs, would be very hard to replace with decentralization.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good points. Actually,
And just let me know if you were able to hear me.
no, we could hear you. No problem.
Yeah.
It's just like, sometimes you need some time to process.
Yeah.
So my computing power is not what it used to be. No, but I think, remember this article, fake DAOs versus real DAOs or something? Well, it had like kind of a very extreme title. And you know what? I read this one, even though it was not like horribly long or complex. I read this one several times because that was exactly, I read this one for the first time exactly when I was trying to decide like what is the right format for my project, right? Because I so love the idea of a DAO, of like this organism who just like, is like just perfectly coordinated and keeps evolving just by itself, essentially, right? I love this visual, like just by itself, right? I love this idea. But then I realized, even though this is something that right, and this is where part of what we had to read in number 3 came in, where it's about external and wait, let me find this one, because this is exactly where I am at right now in there. But it's essentially external and internal layers or something like this. Let me try and find this. This is definitely, I want to say it's somewhere here. Explicit and implicit private goals, right? So it's like if you're the founder of a project, right, you might have a goal like me where you want to see this in the future, to be this evolving organism. But at the same time, you're stuck in reality, right? And reality is like that. A lot of the people in my project are not super self-organized yet. They are in the process of learning how to be self-organized. So for them, it's a huge step, right? And it takes a long time to adjust that internally for yourself. So that's the reality I'm dealing with, which means even though I would love this thing to happen, it cannot happen now. So just, as an example, what I've been doing is I laid out a 3-step plan. Sounds so fascinating, but honestly, it's just a Milanote board, okay, guys? It's not fancy at all. But the 3-step plan is, okay, let's create a lawful entity in Peru. Step number 1. Okay, let's incorporate. Let's have 2 shareholders in this case, no more, right? So we can legally operate in a country. So then 1 layer is safe, okay? The second layer is, let's bring a decent amount of what comes like into decision making, treasury, contribution, and dynamic shareholding on chain, right? Through contracts, NFTs, and dynamic. I call this dynamic shareholder NFT. Remember the multidimensional passport? I know I keep getting back to this because I'm so excited.
Yes.
We're working right now on the visuals. So the team from our protocol, we're, I've been working on it just with Harrison, who's part of the team. So essentially, once we have the visuals and we have now the concept fully thought through, this is now when we go to them and we're like, hey, this is what we've been working on. And he thinks they're going to be very excited about it. So that's good. So point is, it will have a dynamic shareholder agreement embedded in this NFT. So the more you keep contributing, right, the bigger your shares get. Let's say, 100 shares, right? The more you actually do and work, the more shares will belong to you.
But is there a limit of shares?
I think there will be a limit. I have to, honestly, this is a part I have not thought through. But I think we need to design a cap, right? You're not wrong about this.
Yeah.
But we will design this in the 3rd stage, because the 3rd stage will have an automated market maker, probably related to the game, embedded with both ends of this, where you contribute, but then you can take part of your contribution and stake it, right? Or put it to use somewhere else. Because something that I don't agree with in the US is, for example, like, oh, you don't have the money to receive healthcare. Fuck you, go away, bye, die, right? So I want to make sure we have these things eventually there that will help people to think about healthcare, to think about a pension, all of these things. So that is the third layer, because we cannot do it earlier, right? But obviously it's all more complex. I'm summarizing very superficially, but this is the idea, right? Because I cannot go 100% in the first step. It's not humanly possible. It's not technically possible. It's not, there is no possibility in this. And I think the only thing that I really wanted to say is, it's good to have a very huge goal as to I want to go 100% decentralized. But then at the same time, you need to look at reality, and reality comes from your stakeholders, and seeing if your stakeholders are even ready yet for that, right? I have mostly designers as stakeholders. They are not ready yet, okay? They're struggling with self-organization. So I cannot do that to them, even though I would wish I could, right? Sorry, blah, blah, done.
No, I mean that's that's very, very interesting, because it shows a completely new perspective. Yeah, I mean, you can design the best decentralized governance blah blah system in the world. If your human beings that are part of it, as stakeholders or as users, react completely differently, you might don't get your system goals reached.
Grayscale, you want to say something?
Right, can you hear me?
Now I can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, because my connection somehow is funky. I think the main thing about what you're doing is that you did have a long-term type of no goal, which when you go up into this cycle of getting people on board, things like that, having that goal.
Grayscale? Oh no. I think
He got something with sound, some echo.
I think it's his connection. I hope he will be back. I also Wojtek dropped out, I guess, because of his connection. Hopefully he's going.
Yeah, he was on a train, right?
Yeah, he's on a train. Yeah, that is legit, But let me actually reach out to Wojtek. Okay. Grayscale, we cannot hear you.
It was a sign of life.
Let's see if you can respond in the chat. He's dropping out, yeah.
I guess back in a minute or something like that.
Yeah, probably. Today is like a really sad day. Like everyone is falling out. Like everyone's just like
Yeah. Like participation rate in DAO governance.
Yeah, it's like fluking.
Everyone is excited about the token, and then no one is going to vote.
Remember when we started the study group, we had 20 people, right? 15 to 20 people.
Yeah.
It's like, and I mean, some of them finished because they're just much faster than us, right? That's fair.
Yeah.
But some of them really didn't finish at all. Yeah. So, yeah, it's like.
I mean, it's a lot of work,
Don't tell me about it, okay? Thanks.
It wasn't, it was chapter 1 was okay, chapter 2 was okay, even chapter 3, all right, yeah. But then chapter 4, quite steep stuff if you're not into this kind of programming,
Yeah.
like us, I guess, Stella. And now this pre-reading list, I mean, it took a lot of fucking time to get there.
Yeah, I agree with you. Grayscale, you made it.
Hey,
Oh
great you're back.
my gosh, this has never happened so frequently before.
Actually, I think there is something with Discord. I think they are updating a lot right now. You know, it's Discord's birthday, so I think they're running a ton of updates, and I think some of them might also influence stability. Because I've had this most recently a lot, that people kept being kicked out and stuff. So yeah, don't fret it. Anyhow, you were saying.
Okay, what was my thoughts? I was saying that the fact that you do have a long-term mission goal for your project, and that you do kind of scope it out in that way, even though you don't have everyone on board that you want to kind of propel that vision. But as long as you have that vision, no matter what these cycles that you go through, you'll still be able to kind of stay the course, because you have that one goal and the process of how you think you should be able to get there. And I think that's important. That a lot of projects don't have. They kind of pick something, like I said before, like a technology. Say, well, we can make this widget spin and go upside down and do these things, but there's no purpose in it. So, but if you definitely have that goal, and then you have the steps on how you want to get to the long term. I mean, like that's kind of half the battle.
I agree. Also to define not just the long-term goal matters, obviously, but also having like short and mid-term goals, right? Because short-term and mid-term goals, they keep also your people engaged, right? It's like once you've taken on the responsibility of having people around you who work with you on this, and you're like division leader, let's just say, right? It's really important to also take care that they feel, wow, actually, I'm doing some cool stuff here, right? And bring exposure to that. That's something that I personally miss a lot in other Web3 related, let's say more like fashion related projects, right? Because originally I come from fashion, so I follow a lot of digital fashion projects. And sometimes I really miss this. It has like very old structures. It uses all of these new technologies. But then, for example, it's like this one spokesperson who says like, oh, look what my team made, right? And you're like, yeah, who is your team? Please tag the people who did this, right? Who made this? Who actually did make this? Tell us, right? Yeah. And it's like something that I sometimes really miss. And sometimes depending on my mood swings, I get very agitated by it. And I just drop a comment and like, who made this? Please tag people, right? And I'm like, oh my God, Stella, why did you do this, right? But it's important to me because this is not just a new technology layer, right? First of all, it's a foundational change in technology, first of all, if we want to talk tech, right? But then at the same time, it comes with a new set of values and a new set of standards. And that needs to be communicated continuously until it really sips into people's minds. Right? And the part why NFT technology spoke so much to artists is not because, oh yeah, sure, artists and that goes so well, right? That's not the thing. But it proved a point. It proved a point of now, everyone can see who made this, right? And then the person who made this is going to profit from making this also in the future, which usually is not the case. So, yeah, we drifted.
I mean, you kill all the intermediaries, especially in fashion and art markets, right? So if you're an artist, you really have to have a good agency,
Yeah.
to show your pictures or your artwork. And without those intermediaries, you will never have a chance to really cash out somehow. Yeah. And I think this technology, especially with regard to art and fashion, allows each and everybody to present his ideas and to participate in the wealth creation
I
process.
agree with you, but you know what's like actually something very funny is that
Yeah.
artists and designers are often very much like tech nerds. Like a lot of us are actually very
Okay.
introverted. You know, you always only know like the people like, you know, Karl Lagerfeld or Jean-Paul Gaultier who are very,
Yeah.
or seem at least very extroverted, right?
Yeah.
But the truth is somewhere
Yeah.
somewhere very different, right? A lot of art people, a lot of design people are actually huge introverts. And so for them it's not easy to adapt their mindset to this. This is also why I want to give this workshop for token engineers, because I realized it's the same problem, right? It's the same problem that a lot of designers have. They're like, oh, I make my stuff and maybe someone discovers that I'm actually good, right? But it's not like
Yeah.
this mindset of like, hey, I make my stuff and look what I did. Isn't that cool, right? And it's the same with engineers. Engineers build the most magnificent things, but then no one knows, you know? And then maybe 20 years later when they died and their kids discover it, you know, it comes to light. Or they're
Yeah.
working for big
Yeah.
companies and then, you know, sometimes no one really knows their names, right? But yeah, the company made a bunch of money with this tech. So it's kind of the same issue, right? And
Yeah.
it was very interesting to observe for me. And yeah, anyway.
It is.
It's funny. I mean, like on a kind of similar vein that you're kind of talking about. I mean, the reason why like my first introduction into the space actually because my background is in photography, and I remember having a notion, not for my work, but for other like young painters to have their work go on a blockchain and actually every time the painting got sold, or even in the second and third and fourth market, somehow they still got a little bit of piece of the money. So the whole concept, I mean, like that was my original concept thinking. I was like, wow, that's kind of neat. So you don't got to think about it. And I was even thinking about it a little bit about my work. Like if I made something and I made an NFT and embedded in the NFT, a little bit of change every time it got sold, went to my daughter's fund, it went to this, through a like smart contract. I mean, like that's kind of how I thought. But because the idea of marketing yourself, of always being in front of the camera, always doing these things, wasn't a big thing for me. And these artists who I was thinking about, they weren't that way either. They would just be in their loft doing this and that, and then say, oh, this piece is good, that piece is good. Maybe I'll sell it on the street. Maybe I'll do this, type of thing. So yeah, so it's kind of interesting. And the reason why I kind of got interested in this space is because of that fact, that possibility of maybe if your work was linked to something that will go on the blockchain, and then you can get this reoccurring income.
Yeah.
It was kind of passive because you have to think about it. I mean, it's all embedded in the smart contract. So.
Yeah, and we've been only exploring this really for like art and memberships, right? But what about, templates of some sort, right? Like design templates or even like for example, contract templates, right? It's I think we're really just beginning to understand. Like for example, I was asked by our lawyers, okay, so you have the branding in place, so should we officially, register the branding in Peru? And I was like, I mean, maybe, but honestly, I'm just gonna mint it all on the blockchain, because then, I have proof that we did this, right? And I have proof that, whoever comes after and tries to copy it, right, it cannot stand. So now it's just the question, the continuous question, by the way, is like, how do we link the physical or the Web 2 world to the Web 3 world, right? We need more tools for that. So, for example, the trademark registration. How can we bring that stuff on chain, or at least link with on-chain data to make this really acceptable in both realms and not just one? These are interesting questions, I think. And this is also, where, algorithms as policy comes in, right? I mean, I don't want to touch on all the frustration that is happening right now in the US with the SEC, but damn.
I have so many thoughts on that. It's because my my Twitter feed has just been bombarded with this, because I'm on the side, because there are a lot of banks, small Bitcoin banks that are like one comes to mind with Caitlin Long's bank, who's been trying to get approval from the SEC to have her bank, because she wants to have Bitcoin as one of the currencies that she can deal with, and of course she's been denied like all the licensing for her bank, but then you have and there's a whole slew of banks who wanted to have blockchain, ETFs in their portfolio. Now you get BlackRock, who has a lot of
Bitcoin ETF, right?
Yes. And they have a lot of like labor union money and all this stuff. How come they have carte blanche and getting that approval much quicker than a smaller
because they have much more political power.
Exactly. And it's just not fair. I mean, it makes no sense. What they're doing here is that they're trying to, and like, I know what the government wants. They don't, they want to make sure that the dollar stays a strong currency for a long period of time. They really do not want any type of alternative strong, coin or token coin, asset class in this country. And that's not, so we're forced to go around the world, which is I don't think it's a problem, because it just makes things. I mean, for me, I enjoy the fact that we can have a global feel to it. So but I really hate the fact that they're picking friends as far as who to give these licenses to and things. So.
But maybe, there's coming international competition, even with regard to the right way to regulate cryptocurrencies and the space. I mean, you can think about the MiCA regulation, is it good or not, but it's there, and it shows clearly legal regulatory framework. And maybe this is pushing, the people in the US to have some kind of similar clear-cut regulations. And that would help the space, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it would definitely have to help the space. I mean, all we really want is them to make a decision on how to regulate this thing, but they're not doing it in that way. What they're doing is that they're just picking, they're saying, yes, and they're saying, we want you to just do what you think is right, and then if you do it, and then we're gonna say, no, that's not right, and then we're gonna penalize you and kind of shut it down. And that's really not the way to go.
That's no better than banning it altogether. Honestly, it's not much better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Drive all the innovators out. The rest of the world will be happy.
Yeah, I was on a call last week with Mark from Bancor, and I think we both assumed that this day and age would come eventually, But I don't think either of us thought it would come that fast. I mean, Gary Vee, okay, a really bad example, but Gary Vee said this in one of his talks. He said, like, hey, you guys are stupid if you think that the governments of this world just let us proceed with what we're doing here. They will try and shut us down as soon as they start to understand. It
got too big.
Yeah, exactly. What is really happening here, right? And like you said, we had this. I remember when we changed from, Niels remembers this time as well, when we changed from the D-Mark to the euro in the 90s, right? It wasn't a fun time. It was not like, yippee-yay, now we're European Union and now we have this, general currency, right? It is a process.
No, it took really some time for the population to get adopted to it.
It really took time. But in the end, it worked, right? It did work. There's a ton of things that can be done better. But if you, instead of just denying that this is happening, right, it would be much safer for a population or for a society or, a country to look at this and be like, hey, this is something we cannot really stop. So instead of trying to, patch all the occurring holes in the system, right? Let's look at this, and let's look at this from a point of view where we might be even okay with accepting this into our country for our people. But we are setting the framework and how this gets to be implemented. That's a much smarter, much more long-term vision thought process than what they're doing right now. What they're doing right now, it feels like the Titanic has been shot with bombs, and then, everyone is trying to fill like the little holes. This is how it feels to me, because the ship is, in my opinion, the ship will be sinking anyways. Meaning, like, the old world will go down, and eventually, all of what we are building will go up, right? And so this like denial, it was the same with, here, Alutra, the unification of Germany, same thing. Everyone knew this would be coming eventually, right? Everyone knew in the mid of the 80s, I want to say, hey, this is getting to a point where we might not be able to control the situation anymore because people want something different, right? Because there were so many protests. And I remember this seeing as a kid, right, on ZDF News. I remember seeing like all of these people, in front of the wall, regular protests, right? And I was like super tiny at the time. And I really remember this from television. And so isn't this the point where you're like, maybe we need to think on how to make this a smart move, right? No, they did not. They waited until the last second, and then they didn't really have a plan, and everything that came after was a catastrophe, to a certain point at least. It's like, how long can you be blind to something that's obviously going to happen? Sorry, I will stop ranting. Stopping now.
No, the thing is, in general, you should work together. You should be cooperative, even to this new space, and not fighting it. And if you see the SEC, Gary, everything in the security, he's going to fight against it. But we know in the end we will win. So it would be a much smarter way to find more cooperative solutions to the problem. I guess that's what you're trying to say, and I would agree to that.
Yeah, it is. It's in the process though. It's it's separating a lot of people. It just gets too ugly when even people in Congress, because there's a younger people in Congress, and and there's a whole commission to get him out. But then you want to still have some financial, like stability in the state. So it's I don't know.
I think when I started to pay attention to this on a larger scale, it was when companies started to incorporate in Singapore and moving essentially, also their assets and whatever, could be beneficial to a country out of the US, right? And that's essentially going to benefit one of the US nemesis, right? Is China. It's going to benefit China eventually. So
well, yes. But we see what's happening, like in Hong Kong. There's big banks in Hong Kong who are now gonna, deal in Bitcoin, and that's a direct link, to China. So even though China has said we're not gonna do it, we're gonna shut down this, but
who knows?
But through Hong Kong, they can easily, control
Exactly.
that space.
yeah, Hong Kong and Singapore and not just Singapore,
Taiwan.
Taiwan.
Yes, and
Taiwan's probably a
Yes.
thing, right? And also, I want to say maybe also Peking, right? No one ever looks at Peking, but Peking it's such a bustling giant, right? Very directly attached to China mainland, and it has so much business over there. So no one ever is looking at it for some reason, but I think it's a really important place to look at as well. But it's important that our little group here is not giving up. I think it matters. I do think, I'm not a very spiritual person or something, but I do think it really matters that there are individuals who are taking these ideas forward, and they're going out and they're trying to establish an ignition of a thought process in their closer environment. It took my husband 3 years, right, until he was finally ready to ask the question, and we sat down for a whole weekend and I started to explain everything to him. Okay, that happened literally 4 weeks ago or something. So, but it happens,
Yeah.
And this is important to focus on, I think. As much as I observe what's happening with the SEC and regulation, and also European regulation, obviously, it's something where I'm like, nah, I'm not going to focus my energies on that, right? I do want to be up to date on it, but I don't waste my energies on it. I don't comment, right? I make people aware, and our weekly little newsletter thing, right? I make people aware, but a friend of mine also recently said, it's a waste, focusing on that now instead of driving positive energies forward and educating people on the potentials of this technology does matter much more than fighting against what's happening there right now. Because you can comment, you can write articles, you can troll, but it's not worth your energy, right? I think it's misplaced energy. But Grayscale, you're more in the middle of this. I'm curious what you think.
Well, yeah. I mean, I try not to get into any internal fights or any back and forth on Twitter or anything like that. But I think it's important to really just be aware of really what the intentions are. I want to be a part of this, a more regional, Bitcoin bank friendly or crypto friendly bank in this country. I'm even thinking, because I know we talked about it before, of what legal entity, DAO or LLC, that's crypto friendly in this country. We talked about the one in Nevada, but Wyoming is one of the states that's kind of the forefront, and this is where Caitlin's bank is. And if I was going to do business and start up something, I want to be aligned with that type of bank. But if the government is having this full force throttle of fighting everything that they do, it's not gonna it's not gonna live. That means my interests are gonna kind of fail too if I go in that route. So I have to stay on top of these types of things. But the intentions of the U.S. government is really, like I said before, and I got this 3 years ago listening to a podcast, taking a walk, when a senator was saying that the objective is to continue to make the U.S. dollar the dominant currency of the world, and we will do and he said, we will do anything possible to continue that. And when I heard that, that just hit me in the head, and I'm like, okay, so no matter what happens, they're going to fight tooth and nail somehow to continue that, that presence all over the world.
I mean, that's currently where all their power comes from, right?
Yeah.
It comes from
Yeah.
that, we're kind of far away from you guys, right? We're on a different continent, basically. But you can pay in Peru with US dollar and with soles, right? It's a thing, and it's the same in Hong Kong, right? You can pay with US dollar. Like, people will not just be like, oh no, fuck that, right? And they have a lot to lose, but in my opinion, only if they keep going the way they're going into now. If they were as smart as to accept reality, let's just say, right, that this is eventually going to happen, they could think of very beneficial systems for themselves to transition from the US dollar to a digital currency. They could do that. It takes change, it takes, some courage to do that, right? But history has proven it's possible. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, they don't see the huge opportunity with regard to the stablecoin market completely in US dollars. And that would strengthen the role of the dollar as a worldwide currency. But if they go along the way that they are doing right now, they might lose this kind of stablecoin market.
Yeah.
And that would be dangerous. Yeah. If you want to be part of this future, and if you want to preserve the role of the dollar, you should try at least that the dollar is, it's dominating the stablecoin market, because that means additional demand for the US dollar, at least when you move from the fiat world to the crypto world.
Lutra.
And I think they don't realize that this might be a great opportunity.
Yeah, I agree with you. Lutra, this is your next article for the next edition of Alana magazine, okay?
Which one? Yes, I will do so.
This is a good one to write, I think. Seriously. It's a good one.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
I promise I will do it.
Awesome. Guys, it's been a blast. We're not on top of the hour, but on top of our hour. Okay, so for next week,
we finish.
Yeah,
should we finish chapter 4 and all do chapter 5?
Yeah, I think so. Is that okay?
Okay.
Yeah, I would post this also in our chat, so we have somewhere to look at in case we forget.
Please.
Yeah, it's okay.
Put the homework in there.
Yeah, because I'll definitely be a little bit more detailed on my notes. Next week. So.
Yeah, no, that's good, because it is a ton of reading, right? I'm not going to minimize this. Also, there are some things that are not very complicated, but to really internalize them, you read through them twice, and you're like, and then I usually then create my own thought process on top of it. So it takes some time going through these things, but I think this chapter, like the whole module, I think it's organized this way. It's meant to make you think about the stuff that you want to make, right? It's not about just going through it and be like, oh, these are the facts. Okay, yeah, now I know the facts, right? It's meant to make you think. And I think Jessica did like absolute fantastic job and putting this together. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Woohoo.
All right.
See you next week, guys.
All right.
Have a good one.
Yeah.
See you next week.
Have a good weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.